With cold, blunt analysis cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's time for the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
Kyle Rittenhouse and his former bodyguards claim that his client lied to a jury. Which is it, sweet-faced boy or cold-blooded killer? Well, we'll tell you what this is about. An ex-Kyle Rittenhouse spokesman has alleged premeditated intent for shooting and racist texts. Not a stretch to me.
Premeditated intent? Where is she getting that? From David? I don't think David made that claim. David claimed that Kyle used the N-word in one of his text messages. But for some reason, I have yet to see a screenshot of that text, and it doesn't seem to get mentioned anymore. What happened to it? If Kyle did use the N-word, he probably used the version with the soft A on the end. You know, the one that supposedly is okay to use? The one that the first dude Kyle shot used all night? Which for some reason is ignored by Kyle's detractors. Gee, I wonder why. I get that David truly hates Kyle, and if his claims about Kyle hijacking his credit card are true, then I don't blame him. But this hatred could be coloring his claims about Kyle's guilt. By the way, it's not a stretch for you, because you'll believe anything if it aligns to your worldview, Sharon. In fact, of all the people on YouTube right now, you probably have the lowest threshold for gauging credibility of your sources. You lean on the Atlanta Black Star, for crying out loud.
Long crime reporting Dave Hancock, who also served as Rittenhouse's bodyguard, has said his former employer misled the jury and the public when he testified he only acted in self-defense.
If David is claiming that Kyle lied when he testified that he only shot in self-defense, then David flat lied to me when he told me that he believed in Kyle's innocence. So what does Wisconsin state law say about self-defense? Well, you have to go to the relevant statute, 939.48. To negate Kyle's claim of self-defense, Kyle would have had to either provoke the attack by doing something illegal that would likely draw an attack, or B, doing something for the express purpose of initiating an attack so as to claim self-defense. Kyle's detractors will say,
well, he carried a gun around. That's provocation.
But that's a real bad legal take. Carrying a gun around is legal in an open carry state like Wisconsin, and the state already has declared that simply carrying a gun around does not negate self-defense. If that doesn't convince you, then go to 947.01, paragraph 2, where it says, unless other facts and circumstances that indicate a criminal or malicious intent on the part of the person apply, a person is not in violation of, and may not be charged with a violation of, this section for loading a firearm, or for carrying or going armed with a firearm without regard to whether the firearm is loaded or the firearm is concealed or openly carried. In other words, merely carrying a gun is not enough. The person has to be doing something else with it. Now, you might come back and say, well, he was pointing his rifle at people. There is zero evidence of that. Now here come Rashad Richey's fans.
He was carrying an AR-15 in public, so he's guilty.
Okay.
When the world finds out everything that happened in this case and with Kyle, it'll be shocking, Hancock said. It's breathtaking. Hancock's account seems to support the state's claim that Rittenhouse was looking for a fight on that August 2020 evening when he arrived in Kenosha.
David has been posting his claims for about 6 months now, and none of it adds up to anything I would call shocking. I mean, sure, some of it paints Kyle in a negative light. His Kyle is an angel persona will take a hit at the expense of a Kyle is a typical adolescent jerk persona. but none of it indicates that Kyle went to the protest to do anything but help local businesses. We have him on video for nearly 2 hours. In it, he does nothing but seek out injured protesters and try to keep the peace. Only about 18 minutes of his involvement is missing from the footage. To negate that image, his text would need to say something like, "I plan to go to the protests to lure attackers so as to shoot them." Good luck finding that.
Atmosphere there had grown increasingly volatile, with armed residents facing off against protesters demonstrating against the police shooting of Jacob Blake. 29-year-old, remember that? Black man paralyzed after running with a white officer.
It took time, but it looks like she has finally abandoned her unarmed black man mantra when describing Blake. For the record, Blake was a violent pig who tried to drive off in a car filled with kids while carrying a knife. He had just assaulted police officers who were trying to serve a warrant on him for a felony, a serious felony, involving sexual assault. He absolutely deserved all 7 bullets.
Atlanta Black Star giving us that reminder. Hancock's account would have bolstered my main argument about Kyle's state of mind, Prosecutor Thomas Binger said in The Trials of Kyle Rittenhouse, a new documentary airing on the Long Crime Network.
Binger, your case didn't need a jolt of life. It was dead on arrival. First, you don't seem to understand the concept of state of mind. After all, Judge Schroeder swatted your other act's motion into orbit. Did that not teach you anything? Anyone that would have been persuaded to render a guilty verdict based on the claims of David Hancock should never serve on a jury. Because even if everything David said is true, and I have no way of knowing, how does any of it negate the obvious self-defense we saw on video? Again, you're going to need a text message that basically says that I'm going to go there to provoke an attack so that I can shoot someone.
May have changed the outcome of the trial.
You were never close to winning that case. It was a complete blowout from the jump street. It was so bad that even Kyle's detractors were predicting an acquittal. Sure, they blamed their premonitions on white privilege or a MAGA judge or any of the other litany of lame excuses, but deep down, they knew that you didn't produce squat to prove your case. Sorry, Binger, but you're doing little more than crying that you would have won the case if you had known about this other act's evidence. In truth, you never stood a chance because, 1, all of the evidence that mattered pointed to self-defense, and 2, you suck as a lawyer. Nothing that David Hancock can produce will ease the embarrassment of your loss. Essentially, you'll use David's evidence to kick a field goal down by 40 with 10 seconds left in the game just to avoid a shutout.
Hancock had been working for Rittenhouse since after the shooting. He initially believed Rittenhouse's claim of self-defense, but that changed after he later became aware of text messages that surfaced as part of a civil lawsuit filed by the family of one of the victims. He told Law and Crime that the jury probably would have convicted Rittenhouse if they were aware of the text messages. Hancock, who helped Rittenhouse promote his book, Acquitted, for parting ways with the shooter sometime last year, said he regrets misleading the public.
Okay, that much I believe David Hancock said. However, if he is claiming that Kyle did not act in self-defense, then he absolutely lied to me. What did David Hancock actually say? Since you can't trust anything Sharon says or what the Atlanta Black Star writes, who knows?
There was a history of things he was doing prior to Kenosha, specifically patrolling the street for months with guns and borrowing people's security uniforms, doing whatever he could to try to get into some kind of gunfight. It all makes sense, doesn't it? It all makes sense now.
If it all makes sense to you, Sharon, then that is the best reason not to believe it. I would like to see the evidence that Kyle was distinctly trying to get into a gunfight. Where is that coming from? Keep in mind, David had never met Kyle when all this was supposedly going on. He would not have any direct knowledge to back these claims. So where is it coming from? If Kyle said that in a text message left on his phone, why hasn't a screen capture of that text message not been publicized. That would be the most important text to show. Yet I haven't seen it or even heard that it exists.
I believe things he told me that I now understand to be one of his many lies, and that hurts. He had allegedly vowed to murder shoplifters previously. According to Guardian, Rittenhouse vowed to murder people he saw shoplifting at a local CVS pharmacy 2 weeks before the Kenosha shooting.
I am not sure that's what the text message said. My understanding of it was that Kyle Rittenhouse vowed to murder those who invaded his home. Regardless, the CVS video footage has already been debated endlessly, with one side, who happened to know something about the rules of evidence, claiming it was irrelevant, and the other side, composed of ignorant morons, claiming it somehow pointed to Kyle's guilt. Judge Schroeder, who knows Wisconsin's courtroom procedures like the back of his hand, punted Binger's attempt to introduce the CVS video across the parking lot. No one who looked into the issue thought it should be admitted.
I wish they would come into my house, one text message said. I will effing murder them.
Speaking of irrelevance, if you think the CVS video footage was irrelevant, Kyle talking about shooting people breaking into his home is even more irrelevant. At least the CVS video had shoplifters and rioters. How would shooting home invaders bear any resemblance to what happened on August 25th? Oh, and Kamala Harris has already told the public on Oprah that she would gladly kill any home intruder. Both her and Oprah laughed. So did the audience. Don't believe me?
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes, I hear that. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that.
But
my staff will deal with that later.
Hypocrisy, man. It's brutal.
The family of the two victims in the shooting, along with the survivor, have filed a federal lawsuit alleging that the city of Kenosha and police conspired with militia groups and facilitated the violence that led to the deadly shootings. Hancock said he is prepared to help their case in any way he can.
Gee, it kind of sounds like David Hancock has a burr under his saddle. In other words, it sounds like his claims are being made for reasons other than where the evidence points. And what David is neglecting to tell you is that he thinks Kyle stole money from him. He told me on the phone that Kyle took off after ringing up tens of thousands of dollars on his credit card. Now, if Kyle did that, then I have no respect for him. He needs to pay that money back, even if by installment. However, I think we need to be clear. David has ulterior motives here. That doesn't make him wrong, but we need to take them into account when assessing the credibility of his claims. By the way, I distinctly told David that in this country, when we think someone has committed a tort against us, we file suit. That's how it's done. Why didn't he sue Kyle for the lost money? I asked him. I can't remember his answer.
So this makes sense to me, Mayor. The main thing I disagree with in the details I brought you was the man's comment about it being a shock. It's not a shock at all to me. This is the kid I saw on the stand with his crocodile tears. And this is the kid who was looking for a fight. And instead of walking away, decided to stand his ground. Oh, yeah, he crossed state lines to be there, right? That's how concerned he was. I'm not surprised at all. And I wish the feds could try him for murder.
And you thought she couldn't dial it up any dumber than she had, eh? Seriously? I sometimes wonder how she got a degree. How in the hell did she pass any of her college classes? I looked Sharon up, and she graduated from Georgetown. Hey, Georgetown, for shame, for shame. So let's blow up her claims one by one. Number one, Kyle never stood his ground. He never claimed to stand his ground. Stand your ground had nothing to do with Kyle's defense. It's hard to stand your ground when you're literally running from your attackers. You Idiot. Number 2, you asked he crossed state lines to be there, right? No, that's not right. When Kyle drove into Wisconsin, he had no idea he would be going to a protest that night. He drove to Wisconsin to go to work as a lifeguard. Of that, there is no doubt. The riots didn't start until after he was already in Wisconsin. If she enrolled in my physics class and I saw this video beforehand, I'd just tell her, look, I don't think this class is for you. It requires some smarts about you and you'll have to figure out stuff. What I'm saying is you're too stupid to pass. Okay, for all you Rashad Richey fans who have stumbled on my video and want to post comments, do me a big favor. Post in the English language. You are adults. I believe you can post comments using complete sentences and not slaughtering every rule in strunk and white if you just try hard. Oh, who am I kidding? Just to be clear, it is possible for the feds to try someone for murder who was acquitted for murder by a state court. These cases are extremely rare because the killing would need to be a federal offense. Even if you think Kyle's claim of self-defense doesn't hold water, nothing about the shootings make it a federal case. You may argue that Kyle's shootings were a hate crime. Good luck with that one. Not only did he shoot white people, but there isn't a shred of evidence that he shot anyone because they were white or black or Jewish or anything. It's pretty clear that his shot selection was based more on who was attacking him than the color of their skin. Just remember, they couldn't even try George Zimmerman for a hate crime due to a lack of evidence that his shooting was inspired by hate. And George actually shot a person of color. They also explored the idea of trying Officer Darren Wilson for a hate crime when he shot Michael Brown dead. Again, they declined, stating that there was no evidence that Wilson shot Brown for racial reasons. And again, Wilson shot a black person. By the way, Wilson clearly shot in self-defense, and his shooting was absolutely justified. No doubt about it. We have no way of knowing if Zimmerman was truly innocent or not, but the state's evidence was razor thin. His acquittal was the only just verdict.
The tragedy of all of this is, this person who is now selling a documentary, a 90-minute documentary, Hancock, is as naive as everybody else that goes along with white supremacy. The idea that this person didn't have an intent to do harm or murder someone is ridiculous, even without the text messaging. And those of us that swallow air and see with our eyes, we know exactly what happened and was happening and has been happening in this country forever.
You don't know what happened. You don't know what's happening. You're ignorant of all the facts of the case. You can't be bothered to do any research on the Kenosha shootings at all. Like all the other nitwits subscribing to Indisputable, you probably believe that Kyle's mother drove him to the protest. And white supremacy? White supremacy? Kyle shot 3 white guys. You couldn't get any whiter than the guys Kyle shot. Listen to these names: Rosenbaum, Grosskreutz, Huber. Do those sound like they belong to people of color?
This man was in a whole other state, Antioch, Illinois, left there to go to Kenosha for one reason. Because why would you go to where there are already police officers already dealing with a fiery scene?
Police officers already dealing with it? Are you insane? The police were not dealing with it. They set up a barricade and pretty much let the rioters do whatever the hell they wanted. I mean, did you not see the destruction from night 2? Millions of damages, assaults. But according to you, though, the police already had it under control.
After black people had been murdered and shot, right? We
know why he crossed state lines. He did so to go to work. No doubt about it. I don't know what fairy cage you've been living in, but anyone who paid attention to the trial at all knows this.
This was a couple months after George Floyd, and then Blake happened a couple weeks, and then he shows up. For what?
A couple of weeks? What are you talking about? The George Floyd killing occurred 3 months prior to the Kenosha riot, and the protest of Jacob Blake's shooting started that very night. What is this couple of weeks? The dude doesn't know anything. He's a vast, inexhaustible supply of ignorance. And by the way, he's the mayor of some little hole in North Carolina. It has a population of, what, a couple of thousand people? He's a nothing.
With the intent to hurt someone and murder someone. That's why you brought your gun. That's why you were walking around in that situation with your gun. Here's what's really disgusting about this. Because we have a double jeopardy, which is important for our justice system, it is tragic that now you're telling us this because you can sell this movie. You can sell this movie. But this person now walks free knowing we already knew he was a murderer. We already knew he was a murderer. His intentions don't match his tears, like you said on the stand. His intentions were clear. We all knew that. We said that. The justice system, though, however, not only failed everybody who was protesting, but it fails everybody who this man will come into contact with forever and ever.
Never mind the idiocy of his claims that Kyle's guilt was obvious. Tell that to the jury who examined the evidence, watched the videos of the actual shootings, and heard from numerous eyewitnesses. This was not an OJ trial that was based on circumstantial evidence. All 12 of them disagree with you. All 12. So don't give us this crap that we all saw his intentions. What you saw was his skin color. What you heard were his political affiliations. That's what mattered to you. Kyle is on video running from his attacker while yelling, "Friendly, friendly." But you close your eyes and ears to that reality. To you, seeing a psychotic pedophile chasing a kid across a parking lot clearly shows the violent intentions of the kid.
Forever and ever and ever and ever. And you know what? I'm done. This is not a sweet-faced Midwestern boy. This is a cold-blooded racist killer. That is my view of who Kyle Rittenhouse was even before he crossed those state lines. And you ask Mayor, well, why did he go? There was already police. I don't know. Maybe he was thirsty. Didn't they give him water?
Oh, geez. They gave him water? Is it like liquid gold? It's just freaking water. Okay, guys, I can't handle it anymore. I could perhaps deal with the stupidity of one of them, but both of them? If you want me to comment on the rest of the video, let me know and maybe I'll gather my strength somehow. But let me give you a glimpse of the puddle of lunacy that I'll have to wade through.
Sharon, I don't want to make this show about my disdain for Black people who support Trump.
A few moments later.
In the last couple of weeks, we watched Trump say Black people don't deserve reparations, cops need qualified immunity, and now we see what we already knew, that Kyle Rittenhouse was a racist with intent to murder people for protesting.
Please don't make me do it. Like my video and subscribe to my channel.